Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Nihan SENBURSA from Ordu University Fatsa Marine Sciences Faculty. Today, I will present you our subject on invasive organizations and new approach in management science. Let's look at our table of contents. We will start talking about giving some background information about the subject, and we will talk about then invasive species in biological science. Then we will switch to invasive organizations in management science. We will also talk about invasive organizations in the maritime industry and invasive organizations in the general management industry, research methods, findings, discussion, conclusion, and recommendations. Then we will finalize with references. All right. Today, organizations have started to provide many different services in many areas to survive in challenging competitive conditions. In biological science, an invasive species is a species that naturally enters an ecosystem other than the one in which they live, where it multiplies excessively and affects the entire ecosystem. It is possible to see similar behavior examples of invasive species in nature in management science. Invasive species is a term used in biology for species that naturally enter an ecosystem other than the one they live in and grow there and affect the entire ecosystem. Invasive species are more resistant, more dominant, more fertile, and predatory than other species. For example, the jellyfish of the Crocera hysocella species overgrows as an invasive species, taking over the ecosystem in which it is located. Invasive behavior observed in nature. It can also be observed in the organizational ecosystem. For example, while chain markets multiply rapidly within their strong capital structure, physical capacity, product variety, bachelor, greengrocer, stationery, or logistics marketing, stock, and other advantages. They destroy many businesses, such as grocers, butchers, greengrocers, and stationaries in the places that they are open. Let's give some other background information. It would be correct to call organizations that have high fertility by nature, grow rapidly, or dominant, durable, easily dominate the market and take over the ecosystem they are in as invasive organizations. In this context, it is important for management sciences to understand the strategies and behavior patterns of invading organizations that do not give other organizations a chance to survive. The main purpose of this research is to determine theoretically whether the invasive species discussed in biology are also encountered in the organizational ecosystem of management science. Let's look at invasive species and biological science. Invasive species are species introduced into a new environment with adverse ecological, economic, or social impacts. Invasive or exotic species are new species that are not native to a particular ecosystem, but come to a region intentionally or unintentionally in unpredictable ways and times. The spread of invasive species takes place in the form of displacement of species by the ballast waters of ships, human-made, and changes in ecosystems. As awareness of the effects of invasive species increases, globalization increases the ways and pace of invasions. These adverse effects of increasingly recognized in both ecological and economic literature. Humanity's increasing mobility has radically increased the rate at which various creatures move from one ecosystem to another. Examples of invasive species are, for example, puffer fish, lionfish, grass carp, jellyfish, killer algae, etc. As exotic species invade natural communities, bioinvasion, native species that cannot cope with this threat are threatened with extinction. The damages that can be caused by invasive species that come to the ecosystem to which they do not belong and manage to live, and even established colonies can be summarized in three main sections. So invasive species in biological science, they are divided into two. The first group is those who spread from their natural habitats to new environments and adapt to the environment, reproduce and feed on eggs and larvae of other species, or those who put pressure on native species and take them under their protection and destroy them. So the second group is they are defined as the species that find suitable environment conditions in the arena where they have just settled, multiply for a moment, reproduce in rapid numbers, and then disappear after being unable to dominate or and pressure. For example, if we give an example of a jellyfish species, which is one of the invasive species that are transported to different ecosystems from the ecosystems that they are in, with the ballast water of the ships, found suitable food and environment in the Black Sea ecosystem and spread very quickly, consuming the anchovy eggs and larvae in the environment, causing the anchovy stock to collapse. Then again, another Boreoviata jellyfish species come with the ballast water of the ships, which eats newly arrived jellyfish, which causes great damage to the environment and starts to multiply rapidly in the environment. After spending a certain amount of time in their new ecosystems, they cannot hold on. They lose their competitiveness and lose their dominant species. All right, let's look at the types of invasive organizations in management science. Shipping organizations, agencies, forwarders, brokers, port management, or wide variety of companies that provide all kinds of services to ships are among the main companies that contribute to maritime economy. The maritime industry is very dynamic and has a wide range of maritime businesses it serves. It is possible to come across invasive organization types in the maritime sector where competition is quite intense. In addition to the areas where the ship agents provide their main services, the customs clearance of the customers, or on the contrary, the agency services of the customs consultancy firms can be examples of invasive species. Therefore, these types of companies enter into two different service areas and provide services outside of their main business, and they also become partners in the services of other companies and get a share of a pie. When a job is taken from one client and the other job is sometimes given free of charge. Again, in the maritime industry, main agents differing forwarders, that is freight brokers, can be given as an example of invasive organization types. Forwarder organizations have a high amount of guarantee against relatively cheap freight from ship lines and provide freight to their customers at reasonable prices compared to the line. Ship owners, that is, lines, give prices directly to the forwarder customers, of which they have all the information and invade the forwarders market. Again, in the maritime industry, the main agency devouring, as we have already said, forwarders, that is freight brokers, can be given as an example to the invasive organization types. Forwarder organizations have high amount of guarantee against relatively cheap freight from ship lines and provide freight to their customers at reasonable prices compared to the line. Ship owners, that is lines, give prices directly to the forwarders, of which they have all the information and invade the forwarders market. Another example is the concept of port-based logistics, third-party logistics. The main activity of the ports is to handle ships. However, today, ports try to collect all logistics services and activities as much as possible, as well as ship unloading and loading activities. Many service items that can be provided by different organizations in the logistics sector, such as cargo storage, port cargo transportation, distribution, stock tracking, packaging, labeling, and empty container storage have entered the field of activity of ports. In fact, security services have now begun to be provided within the services, within the ports themselves, and specialist security firms have been excluded from the service. All these service items can actually be performed by different businesses due to faster service and less cost. Ports provide a competitive advantage and do not leave a chance for organizations, other organizations to survive. Although this example means providing integrated service, it is also an example of invasive species encountered in the maritime industry. Integrated services provide many advantages to customers, but the side effect is that the monopolization of service providers. It is obvious that at the end of the monopolization process, it will always reflect negatively on the customers. Other example is that the shipyard owning organizations that manufacture marine vehicles, including tugboats, are granted pilotage and tugboat organization authorization. Owning a tugboat is an issue with high investment and operating costs, as well as supply difficulties. Producer organizations use their tugboats with cheaper costs to obtain organizational permit, have a competitive advantage, and increase their profitability without having difficulty in supply. It is also seen that ship owner organizations attack and enter business lines in the maritime industry. The cargo carried by the ship owner arrives at the port owned by the same ship owner, and land transportation is provided by his own logistics and transportation organization, again the same owner. It is not allowed to transport the cargo with different organizations. Such global lines have started to pool when it comes to logistics services such as ship ownership, line management, port management, rail and road transport, and warehousing. They also invade all other links of the supply chain. They do not give small businesses a chance to survive in the supply chain, or push them to downsize, and eventually incorporate other organizations that cannot compete and force them to choose. So let's look at the types of invasive organizations in general management industry. Businesses such as grocers, butchers, greengrocers, delicatessens, patisseries, and stationaries markets have been meeting the basic standards and needs of people in their regions and neighborhoods for centuries. However, in the last 20-30 years, super hypermarket chains have butchers and grocery stores and sell delicatessen, pastry, stationery, and textile products. In addition, unlike the grocery stores, the advantage of large space and parking, discounted campaigns, credit card installments, and home delivery services affect the customers of grocery stores and other small businesses, rendering them dysfunctional in the market. For example, between 2010 2017, the number of grocery stores, neighborhood convenience stores, meaning in Turkey, decreased from 240,000 to 162,000, while the number of grocery chains increased by 285%. Similarly, restaurants have been serving for centuries in places such as neighborhoods or industries with menus suitable for the taste and culinary culture of the society and the region they are in. However, the cultural changes that have emerged with the globalization trends in recent years have changed many habits and deeply shaken the eating habits of the society. In addition, with the increase in competition and speed, especially in metropolitan cities, people have had to spend their time on the road or at work instead of sitting in a restaurant while moving from place to place. For such reasons, restaurants and cafes providing fast food services have emerged. These places, which offer global cuisine products such as hamburgers, coffees to people, are taking the place of traditional restaurants with an increasing momentum. These fast food chains are invading the market by using various forms such as shopping malls, airports, underpasses, road stops, street side kiosks, boutique cafes in the neighborhood, and also by using proactive methods such as takeaway. They also invade places the restaurants cannot easily enter, occupying their space and eliminating them in the market. So when we look at the material and methods, this research was handled with a descriptive review model. In this context, the related concepts of biological science and management science and maritime management science were handled comparatively, and the definitions in biology were adapted to management science. Then through this conceptual model development, the types of invasive organizations that emerged in industries such as maritime, food, education, and textiles were revealed and conceptually discussed in this research. So, when we look at the findings, the findings obtained within the scope of this research show that invasive organizations as a concept enter into different disciplines other than biology. It has been determined that invasive organizations types cause significant negative effects on ecosystems and organizations that are economically weaker than themselves. The causes of death of organizations that lost their ability to find against invading organizations over time and had to end their lives after a while can be listed as not being able to find resources, not providing customer satisfaction, and not being economically weak. In this study, it has been observed that in organizations serving in different sectors, such as maritime sector, such as food sector, enter different regions in parallel with the business services they serve and grow in the ecosystem they are. For example, supermarket chains do not give them a chance to leave by invading the markets of grocers, greengrocers, butchers, and stationery with the butchers, greengrocers, textile, stationery, and cosmetics they contain. Invasive organizations, invasion methods can be classified as follows. With their strong and capital structure, they do not provide the small organizations a chance to compete by supplying the product on a high scale at low cost. They use advertising, promotion, discount campaign, marketing, and branding weapons by using strategies such as home delivery, package service, online service, installment, car raffle, member card. They surround all the growth and survival paths of their competitors. They gain superiority by using the parking lot, large sales area, shelf design, and effective employee selection. with their network and network structure, they can be easily organized and influence the political mechanisms and professional chambers and other stakeholders. They can manage customer analysis and expectations using scientific knowledge. With the advantage of revealing their own product brands and having logistics, they can make product management more efficient and effective. So, in the discussion part, can talk about some studies that have been done. It is the act of purchasing stocks of a business, which is referred as a takeover tactics in the financial management literature, in order to have a say in control and management over the company without the wishes of the management and or shareholders of another organization. The terms merger, acquisition, takeover, acquisition, and interim terms. The terms buy or take over mean that one organization takes control of another organization. A takeover is the purchase of shares of an organization against the will of another organization's management or shareholders in order to gain control and ownership over the organization. In mergers, one or more organizations come together under the umbrella of a single organization of their own accord. There are two-party organizations in the takeover attempts. The first party is the target organization whose control is sought and or seized. The second party is the receiving organization attempting to take over the target organization. The diversification strategy in management, in marketing, is that the organization enters new markets with new products. It's a suitable strategy if there is nothing left to do in the current market, if the growth limits have been reached, if the organization does not have the opportunity to grow further in the market, or if there are opportunities to be evaluated in other industries. For example, energy sector has become an investment area with a bright future all over the world. This situation has led large companies, called Solo, in our country, which is full of opportunities to enter the sector, even though they didn't have previously investments and experience in this field. But diversification is risky compared to other strategies. There are markets or products for which the firm is not experienced. For this, the firm itself, its resources, competitors should be evaluated well. However, the examples of invasive organization types in the management literature are the organizations that invade the market of the companies that provide different services in the same industry, which are already invested, and the companies that are economically weaker than themselves, serving in the same industry as invasive organization types. It invades the market by establishing organizations that provide different services in the same industry and creating new formations within the ecosystem. To conclude, within the scope of this study, it is discussed whether the invasive species in the biology science also exist in the ecosystem of the organizations. Living things in nature develop harmonious or invasive behavior patterns or relationships to survive. It is possible to observe that there are similar behaviors in the ecosystems of the organizations, which maintains its existence in interaction with its environment like other living things. It has been observed that organizations trying to survive today, where competition, uncertainty, chaos, and violence of change are increasing, invade the markets of the other organizations. In this context, it has been seen that in order to take place in different regions, they weaken the power of other species in the region and cause their extinction. One of the most important factors causing this extinction is the capital strength and capacity size of the invasive species. Thanks to this power, it has been determined that large organizations destroy their small ones almost like an invasive species. The concept of types of invasive organizations, which has not yet entered the management literature and has not yet been the subject of the studies, will be discussed and understood with a holistic perspective by other researchers. Thank you very much for your listening. Our references. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you.